Most teams in the NBA have played around 10 games, and there's already so much that's happened in almost a month of basketball. So let's go through a quick recap of the biggest storylines of the NBA season. The biggest storyline of the past week is Zach Lavine and the Bulls showing interest in exploring trade options. Now, I have a lot of questions about this whole situation, but what I'm most confused about is the timing. I understand it's been a strange start to the season, from a players only meeting after the first game of the season to 3 losses that came within 2 or less points. But the report coming out of Chicago is that Lavine is still frustrated with head coach Billy Donovan benching him in the fourth quarter in a game against the Magic over a year ago. And by the way, in this game, Lavine was 1 for 14 from the field and a -19. So the relationship is already fractured. The Bulls were not a team many expected to make the playoffs. And let's face it, Lavine probably doesn't want to waste his prime years on a team that's bottom feeding. So why wasn't a trade explored in the offseason? Because I'm sure they could have gotten more then compared to now. It's publicly known that Lavine wants out, but teams can't trade any recently signed guys until January 15th. So let's say Lavine wants to go back to LA and play for the Lakers. The only way this trade can happen is after January 15th, where guys like D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hachimura are eligible to be traded. So he's probably not going to LA unless he wants to play another 2 months in Chicago. And if you're a contender like the 76ers, why would you want to add another star in the rotation when you're clearly much better now than you were before the Harden trade? And why would you trade Tobias Harris, a guy who's been in the Sixers for almost 5 years now and the best wing on the team, for Zach Lavine, someone who doesn't play defense and needs to score in order to be effective on the basketball court? I know this season just started, but if I were the GM of a contending team, I'm not sure if I would trade for Lavine. And even if I do decide to trade for him, I'm not sure if I'd give up more than salary filler and a first, maybe 2 depending on how desperate I am. Maybe I'm a little too low on Lavine, but I just don't see him being the piece that takes a team over the hump. We'll keep monitoring this situation in Chicago, but I don't expect anything to happen for the next couple of weeks. One of the most exciting things for me to watch as an NBA fan is the ascension of new stars. Recently, we've seen guys like De'Aaron Fox, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Ja Morant thrive in the role of number 1 option on their respective teams. And this year, we've been blessed with 4 young stars blossoming in All-NBA guys. And those players are Scottie Barnes, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Maxey, and Tyrese Haliburton. I'm going to highlight Scottie Barnes here because he's been quietly amazing in Toronto to start the season. He's averaging 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists a game, shooting almost 37% from 3, which is up from 28% from last year. He's blossoming into that number 1 option Toronto projected him to be when they drafted him in 2021. And at just 22 years old, he's taking almost 17 shots a game and looking much more comfortable with the ball in his hands. But what stands out the most to me is the efficiency. We know that Scottie can take the shots, but making those long-range shots has been a problem early in his career. But 12 games into the 2023-2024 season, Barnes is shooting 59% from long and mid-range shots and 41% from non-corner threes. It's safe to say he's the main reason why the Raptors are hovering around 500 despite their offensive woes. As for Anthony Edwards, we all expected this jump, we just didn't know when it would happen. But through 11 games, he's averaging a 26, 6, and 5 on great efficiency. It's just fun to watch Edwards on offense, because he can take it to the rim, where he shoots almost 70% from, he can take a pull-up or ISO mid-range jumper, where he shoots almost 45% from, he can spot up in the corner, where he shoots 43% from, or he can just hit a 3 in your face. And while he's been slowing down just a little bit in the past 5 games, his team is still 4-1 in those games, and he's still putting up 25 a night. The surprise of the season for me has been Tyrese Maxey, the Philadelphia 76ers standout who's averaging a 28, 7, and 5 on 49% from the field, 43% from 3, and 95% from the free throw line. He's been electric filling in for the recently traded James Harden, and it looks like he might be that guy that pushes Philly over the top. Because one thing that's for certain is that Maxey is not afraid of that big moment. His efficiency has been superb so far, though I would advise Maxey to stop taking those long mid-range shots, as he's shooting 31% from that spot compared to 43% from 3. There's definitely an argument to be made that Maxey has been the best guard in the East so far through 11 games. But the man with the strongest argument to be the best guard in the East, in my opinion, is Tyrese Haliburton. Haliburton has taken another step, from All-Star caliber to All-NBA caliber, putting up 25 points and 13 assists a night as the number 1 option on a ridiculously fun Pacers team. He's the best pure point guard in the league, and someone who is proving in real time to be a guy who can lead you to success. Just looking at the base numbers would make anyone a believer, but looking at the advanced stats and watching him play would make you believe this guy has the potential to be a top 5 player in the league one day. What I love so much about Haliburton is his playmaking. He finds a way to get everyone on the court involved. He's like a guard version of Jokic in the sense that when the ball is in his hands, he can score from anywhere or make a ridiculous pass in the tightest of windows. If you can't already tell, I'm completely in on this Pacers team led by Haliburton, and I'm excited to see where Haliburton goes from here. Switching over to the overperforming teams so far this season, the biggest surprise has been the Houston Rockets, who have won 6 of their last 7, including wins over the Hornets, the Kings twice, the Lakers, the Nuggets, and the Pelicans. There's a couple of reasons why, but the main reason is because new head coach Ime Udoka is given the keys to Alperen Şengün, who's been lights out through 10 games, averaging a 19, 8, and 6. But I've also been impressed with how spread out their offensive attack has been. No player in the starting 5 is averaging more than 19 points or less than 12 points. Every player has bought into Ime Udoka and his schemes, and it's showing on both sides of the ball, because their defense went from one of the 5 worst last season to one of the 5 best this season. They're allowing only 106 points and 39 made field goals per game, and what makes it even sweeter is that they're holding opposing teams to a 32% three-point percentage. While that's probably not sustainable, it's impressive nonetheless, especially with such a young team. And this is all with games missed from Tyrese and with Amen Thompson currently suffering from an ankle sprain. I'm giving so much credit to Ime Udoka, who has gotten this young team to buy into his philosophies that brought the Celtics to an NBA title appearance just 2 years ago. I can see Udoka leading this team for many years to come, and maybe even bringing the Rockets to a deep playoff run in a couple of seasons. Transitioning from a team with a lot of young stars to a team with a lot of familiar faces, the Miami Heat are back, winning 7 in a row following their 1-4 start. I was predicting just a week ago that the Heat would cruise through the regular season once again and find their way through the play-in. But it seems like Erik Spoelstra doesn't want to do that, because even without Tyler Hero these past couple of games, the Heat look sharp on both sides of the ball. We all know about this quote-unquote Heat culture and their tenacious defense, but just listen to the stats. 110 points allowed per game, that's 7th in the league. 17 turnovers forced per game, that's 3rd in the league. Opposing teams' 3-point percentage, 38.6, 27th in the league. So the Heat still have a great defense despite opponents shooting lights out from 3. This tells me that as the season progresses and teams start coming back down to earth from their hot start, the Heat are going to be one of the 3 best defenses in the league. Unbelievable. I just don't understand how this Heat team keeps looking awful, then incredible. As Bill Simmons said last year, this is the quote-unquote zombie Heat, because right when you count them out, they just magically come back to life. I do want to give some props to Bam Adebayo and Duncan Robinson. Adebayo has always been an elite defender, but it looks as though he's lessening the offensive load on Jimmy Butler in the regular season, as he's leading the team in scoring and second behind Tyler Hero in shot attempts. And Duncan Robinson has been lights out so far, putting up almost 8 threes a game on 39% shooting, while adding more to his bag than just running around screens and spotting up. I wouldn't say I'm completely in on this team, because they could easily go on a 4-game losing streak right after this video is published. But I'd say I'm 1 foot in on this Heat team making some noise this season. I'm going to end off this video of storylines by talking about possibly the biggest of them all, the Clippers starting 1-6 in the James Harden era. I can't say I'm completely surprised, as I told you just a week ago that I was completely out on the Clippers after their first game. But I will say they looked really solid last night against the Rockets. I think it was inevitable that one of the 4 major stars was going to have to come off the bench, and that one star was always going to be Westbrook. And while George, Westbrook, and Powell struggled shooting from the field last night, what I liked most about this game is that there was a defined quote-unquote guy. There were so many mouths to feed with the previous starting lineup that it completely altered the way this team played offense. But tonight, Paul George was the one taking the most shots. What I'd like to see from now on is the Clippers defining that number 1 option role every night depending on their matchup. And that doesn't mean completely taking away the idea of Leonard and Harden taking shots. It just means that George will be the one taking the majority of the shots, as he did yesterday, especially in the first half. It would just make more sense for the Clippers to do this on a nightly basis, rather than try to get every one of their stars equal shot attempts. But if I'm a Clippers fan, I'm still looking for a team to accept me into their fandom ship. Because if this season doesn't work out, you have no first-round picks to look forward to until 2030, and 3 guys in their 30s making an absurd amount of money. While there's still just a small glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, remember, this is still the Clippers we're talking about. There are so many more NBA storylines I could go through, so go ahead and like this video for a part 2, and remember to subscribe for more NBA videos just like this one. I'm Julian with TalkBackSports, and I'll see you next time.